Everyone who has any association with the Christian faith can tell you that faith is an important part of what it is to be a Christian, and that there's a relationship between the movement of God and our faith. But what is the nature of that relationship? I'm Pastor Russell Howard, and we'll talk about that very thing on today's Beyond the Notes. In John 11:40, which we covered this week at McGregor, we see the verse where Jesus says to Martha at the tomb of Lazarus, as he's about to raise Lazarus from the grave, he says to Martha, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" Now, there are various ways to take that statement, and there are various ways to take the relationship between our faith, our belief, and what God himself is up to. Some would say, in fact, some have said, that Jesus' statement here to Martha is conditional. That if in this moment she will continue to believe, he will proceed to raise Lazarus from the grave, because there are those in whose view our faith is that which makes God do what we would trust him to do. That doesn't stand up biblically. It doesn't stand up reasonably. Our faith is not our means to bend God to our ends. There's no question Martha wanted her brother to live again, but if you read the whole chapter, John 11, there's no question that Jesus has already decided. He's come to Bethany for the purpose of raising Lazarus from the grave. He's not waiting for Martha to get it right so that she can somehow twist him into acting. But that's one view that's out there, that our faith sort of determines God's course of action. And that view is really, really false. Another view that might sometimes actually be true is that God can put you and I in a trial, and God can be intending that trial to develop us, to test us, to stretch us. In the book of Genesis, there's a moment where Jacob, whom I don't believe had come to saving faith yet, there's some argument if you're a Jacob hobbyist, but at the time when God came down and wrestled with Jacob all night, as you read that account, what you have to know is that God is not wrestling with Jacob because he can't figure out a way to pin him. God is not wrestling with Jacob because he desires to do him horrific harm. That all-night wrestling match with Jacob was a test of Jacob's perseverance. It was a test of Jacob's determination. It was a test, in fact, of Jacob's faith. Would Jacob hang in there, in that case quite literally, with the living God through a very difficult, literal wrestling match? And there will be times for you and I when God puts us in a set of circumstances that is intended to try us. And in those times, when the lesson has been learned, quite often the trial will end. Often I have prayed, Lord, whatever it is I'm supposed to learn from this, apparently I'm not bright enough or tuned in enough or walking with you closely enough to get what you're trying to teach me. And meanwhile, the lesson hurts. If this could be over soon, I'd be glad. Sometimes our faith does play a role in demonstrating that it's time for a trial to end. But I'm convinced that that's not most of it. Certainly, our faith is never about making God do what we want him to do. Our faith is, I believe, only seldom about coming through a season of trial, big trial, so that we can be all the more developed. I say seldom. It's not as frequent as the third possibility, which I think is the possibility in view here. The possibility that's in view here, I believe, is something like this, if I can paraphrase Jesus' words. Martha, I'm about to do something utterly remarkable, and you will miss it entirely if you don't believe. If you don't view what I'm about to do through the lens of faith, you are going to miss something really big. I somewhat know that to be true, not only because of what Jesus says to Martha right here in this paragraph, but if you look at the remaining paragraphs of John 11, beyond where we were on the Lord's Day, you'll see that there are those who knew exactly what Jesus had done. They knew that Lazarus had died, had been in the grave for 4 days, and Jesus had called him out of the grave. And their response was, now not only do we need to kill Jesus, we need to kill Lazarus too. We need to make this whole thing go away. They saw it, but they did not see the glory of God in it because they didn't have any faith. And that's important because I'm convinced that God's moving all around us all the time. God is sovereign. He's in charge of what happens in his world. I love the way Hebrews chapter 11 says it. Hebrews 11 says now, beginning in verse 1, says, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. For by it, the people of old received their commendation. Here it is, verse 3. For by faith, we understand that the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible. I have 2 dogs, and I talk about them a lot. It's no secret, Fender and Gibson. I'm a habitual early riser. The problem with that is on a day when I don't have to get up, Fender and Gibson are used to getting up very early, and they eat not long after they're up. So I never have to set an alarm clock. Fender and Gibson are very reliable in waking me up. And one morning, a couple of days ago, it was very, very, very not cloudy. And I was out in my backyard not long after 4 in the morning, about a half moon, and not a cloud. And as my dogs did what they do in the backyard early in the morning, I just looked up at the sky and was reminded of Psalm 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky shows his handiwork. And I thought to myself, I wonder how many people up and down the east coast of the United States at 4 o'clock this morning are up and out. And I wonder how many of them have even noticed this amazing sky this morning. We're looking at the same sky, but we're not seeing the same thing. A pagan would say, my, oh my, what a glorious spattering of coincidence that is. A pantheist would look up and say, my, look at the gods that are present in the constellations, or some such madness. But a follower of Christ looks by faith and understands that the universe was created by the word of God. Martha, I'm about to do something remarkable here at the tomb of your brother. If you'll believe, you'll actually see it. Hey, Christian friend, he's doing remarkable things in your life all the time. Do you believe? If so, you'll see that it is, in fact, his hand. God bless you, and thank you for listening. We hope by now you're liking and sharing Beyond the Notes and our other podcasts, and we look forward to being with you here from time to time.